The first time I found glitter in my wife's hair at 3 in the morning, she told me it was from a work party. The second time, it was team-building exercises. By the third time, I started wondering what kind of HR department holds midnight craft sessions. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Alex Harper, and if marriage is a haunted house, mine's got creaking floors and a skeleton in every closet. I'm 37, manage 3 restaurants in the downtown district, and used to box in college before I discovered that getting punched in the face for money wasn't as glamorous as it sounds. These days, the only fights I pick are with health inspectors and drunk customers. My wife Alicia is 34, works in HR at some tech startup, and has recently developed an impressive collection of excuses for why she comes home smelling like another man's cologne. She's always been magnetic, the kind of woman who turns heads at grocery stores and makes waiters stutter. I fell for her hard 8 years ago, back when I thought I was lucky to land someone so far out of my league. Now I'm starting to think I was right about the league part, just wrong about which direction. "Alex, you're being paranoid," she said last Tuesday, slipping off her heels in our foyer. It was 2:47 a.m. I know because I'd been watching the clock since midnight, lying in bed like some pathetic detective in a bad movie. "Just tired from work," she added, heading straight for the shower. Always the shower. Never a kiss, never a, "sorry I'm late," just straight to washing off whatever evidence she'd collected during her overtime. I followed her to the bathroom door. "What kind of work keeps you out until 3 on a Tuesday?" "The important kind," she said through the glass. "The kind that pays for this house." That stung. My restaurant income wasn't exactly small change, but Alicia's tech job did bring in more. She'd been reminding me of that fact more often lately, usually when she wanted to end conversations she didn't like. The next morning, I found a receipt in her jacket pocket. Red Roof Inn, 2-hour stay, paid in cash. The signature was barely legible, but I could make out AH and below it, DV. DV. That was new. I knew most of Alicia's co-workers. There was Jennifer from accounting, Mike from IT, Sarah from marketing. No DV in the bunch. But there was someone with those initials who'd been showing up at our social gatherings more often lately. Dominic Vega, 36, works as a foreman at the plastics factory across town. Married to Susie, who happens to be Alicia's best friend since childhood. Dominic's the kind of guy who wears tank tops to barbecues in October and flexes when he thinks women are watching. The kind who calls everyone bro and gives unsolicited fitness advice. The kind who's been texting my wife at all hours. I discovered the texts 2 weeks ago when Alicia left her phone on the kitchen counter during her shower. I'm not proud of snooping, but desperation makes you do stupid things. The messages were mostly innocent. Gym schedules, workout tips, protein shake recipes. But there was something about the frequency that bothered me. 23 messages in one day. Who needs that much fitness advice? "You're overthinking this," my friend Richard told me over beers at Murphy's Pub. Richard's known me since college, back when I had hair and dreams of opening my own restaurant empire. He's got the kind of brutal honesty that comes from watching your friends make the same mistakes for decades. "She's working late, staying in shape, being social. These are good things, Alex. Most guys would kill for a wife who takes care of herself. Most guys' wives don't come home with glitter in their hair and other men's cologne on their clothes." Richard raised an eyebrow. "Cologne? You sure about that?" I wasn't sure about anything anymore. That was the problem. Richard's wife Nikki joined us, sliding into the booth with the grace of someone who's been married long enough to read the room instantly. "Let me guess," she said. "We're talking about Alicia again." "Alex thinks she's cheating," Richard said. Nikki studied me with the kind of look that made me feel like a bug under a microscope. "What does your gut tell you?" My gut says something's wrong. My brain says I'm being paranoid. Trust your gut, she said without hesitation. Women don't change their entire routine for no reason. When did she start the late nights? I thought about it. 3 months ago, right after the company picnic. The one where Dominic and Susie came as your guests? I nodded. Nikki and Richard exchanged a look. What? I asked. Nothing, Richard said too quickly. Just, maybe pay more attention at the Halloween party this weekend. The Halloween party. Richard and Nikki threw one every year, and it was legendary in our circle. Elaborate costumes, too much alcohol, and the kind of drama that kept the neighborhood gossips fed for months. This year's theme was classic characters. Alicia had already picked out her costume, Catwoman naturally. Black leather, form-fitting, designed to make every man in the room forget his own name. She'd convinced Susie to go as Catwoman too, some kind of twin thing that I found more annoying than cute. I'd chosen a pirate costume, complete with sword and eye patch. Looking back, the irony wasn't lost on me. I was about to discover I'd been the blind one all along. The party was Saturday night, 3 days away. I had no idea it would be the night my marriage officially died, but I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there, written in glitter and cologne and hotel receipts. As I sat in Murphy's pub, watching Richard and Nikki pretend they didn't know more than they were telling me, I made a decision. I was done being the oblivious husband, done making excuses for behavior that didn't make sense, done trusting people who'd stopped being trustworthy. Saturday night, I was going to find out exactly what kind of work was keeping my wife so tired. I just had no idea how much it was going to hurt. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp October air that makes you believe in new beginnings. I spent the afternoon getting into character, adjusting my pirate costume and practicing my R sounds in the mirror like some middle-aged idiot. The eye patch kept slipping, and the plastic sword looked ridiculous, but I was committed to playing the part. If only I'd known I was about to discover who else was playing a part. Richard and Nikki's house was already packed when we arrived at 8. The decorations were elaborate. Fake cobwebs, carved pumpkins, a fog machine that made the backyard look like a horror movie set. The guest list was the usual crowd: neighbors, co-workers, friends from college who'd somehow managed to stay in touch despite careers and kids and the general chaos of adult life. Alicia looked stunning in her Catwoman costume. The black leather hugged every curve, and the mask gave her an air of mystery that made me remember why I'd fallen for her in the first place. For a moment, watching her laugh with a group of women by the punch bowl, I almost convinced myself I'd been imagining everything. Then Susie arrived in an identical Catwoman costume, and Dominic strutted in behind her, wearing nothing but a loincloth and a fake leopard print cape. Tarzan, apparently. In October. In Minnesota. That guy's going to freeze his ass off, Richard muttered, appearing at my elbow with 2 beers. Good, I said, watching Dominic flex for a group of admiring women. Maybe it'll keep him distracted. But Dominic wasn't distracted. His eyes found Alicia immediately, and I watched him make his way across the room like a heat-seeking missile. The greeting they exchanged was just a touch too familiar. A hug that lasted a beat too long, hands that lingered on each other's arms. You seeing this? I asked Richard. I'm seeing a guy in a loincloth making questionable life choices, he replied. You want to read more into it, that's your business. But as the night wore on, it became impossible to ignore. Dominic and Alicia were always in the same conversation circle. When she moved to the kitchen, he followed. When she stepped outside for air, he was right behind her. Susie seemed oblivious, chatting with other guests and knocking back wine like it was water. By 10 o'clock, I was done pretending everything was normal. I found them in the kitchen during a particularly loud round of karaoke in the living room. Alicia was leaning against the counter, and Dominic was standing closer than any married man should be to another man's wife. They weren't touching, but the air between them was charged with the kind of electricity that makes your skin crawl. Having fun? I asked, stepping into the kitchen. They jumped apart like teenagers caught by their parents. Alex! Alicia's smile was too bright, too quick. We were just talking about workout routines. At a party, I said. In costume. How romantic. Dominic laughed, but it sounded forced. Your wife's got some serious dedication, bro. Most people give up after a week, but she's been consistent for months. Months. There was that timeline again. Yeah, she's been very dedicated lately, I said, my voice carrying more edge than I intended. Working late, staying in shape, expanding her social circle. The temperature in the kitchen dropped about 10 degrees. Alex, Alicia said carefully, maybe we should head home soon. You seem tired. I'm not the one who's been tired lately, I replied. That's usually your line, isn't it? After your long, hard days at work? Dominic shifted uncomfortably, his ridiculous costume making him look even more absurd. Maybe I should find Susie. Good idea, I said. I'm sure she's wondering where her husband disappeared to. He started to leave, then turned back with a smirk that made my hands clench into fists. You know, Alex, maybe if you spent less time being suspicious and more time at the gym, your wife wouldn't need to find workout partners elsewhere. The kitchen went dead silent. I've been in enough fights to know when someone's trying to provoke you. The smart move is to walk away, de-escalate, be the bigger man. But standing there in my ridiculous pirate costume, watching this half-naked idiot insult me in front of my wife, smart wasn't an option. I hit him. Not a wild swing, not some amateur haymaker. A clean right cross that caught him square on the jaw and sent him stumbling backward into Richard's kitchen island. The fake leopard cape went flying, and Dominic went down hard, taking a bowl of candy corn with him. The crash brought everyone running. Suddenly the kitchen was full of people in costumes, all talking at once. Someone was yelling about calling the police. Someone else was asking if Dominic was okay. Alicia was screaming at me, her face twisted with rage I'd never seen before. But all I could focus on was Dominic, sitting on the floor surrounded by scattered candy, looking up at me with something that might have been respect. Feel better now? He asked, wiping blood from his lip. Getting there, I replied. Richard was trying to restore order, but the party was effectively over. Guests were grabbing coats and making excuses. Nikki was helping Dominic to his feet while shooting me looks that could have melted steel. That's when Dominic dropped the bomb. You want to know the truth? He said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Fine. Your wife's been meeting me at the gym for 3 months. We work out together, we talk, we connect on a level you obviously can't provide. The room went silent again. But here's what's really going to blow your mind, he continued, steadying himself against the counter. It wasn't just me. Ask your wife about Susie, too. Ask her about the things they do together when they think nobody's watching. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Alicia, expecting denial, outrage, anything but the guilty silence that stretched between us. What is he talking about? I asked. Alicia's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Across the room, Susie had gone pale, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. Alex! Alicia started, but I held up a hand to stop her. Not here, I said. Not in front of everyone. But Dominic wasn't done. You think you know your wife? He laughed, blood staining his teeth red. You think you know your friends? You don't know anything, bro. You've been living in a fantasy world while the people you trust have been... This time it was Susie who cut him off, grabbing his arm and dragging him toward the door. We're leaving, she announced. Now. As they made their exit, Dominic called back over his shoulder. Ask them about the hotel, Alex. Ask them about Tuesday nights. Then they were gone, leaving me standing in a kitchen full of shocked faces and scattered candy corn, wearing a pirate costume and feeling like the biggest fool who ever lived. The party was definitely over. The ride home was silent, except for the sound of Alicia's breathing and my knuckles cracking as I gripped the steering wheel. She sat in the passenger seat, still in her Catwoman costume, staring out the window like she could make this whole night disappear through sheer force of will. I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. Neither of us moved. "So," I said finally. "Hotel receipts. Tuesday nights. Susie." "Alex, just tell me the truth. For once in the last 3 months, tell me the truth." She turned to face me, and in the dim light from the street lamp, I could see tears running down her cheeks, cutting tracks through her Catwoman makeup. "It's not what you think." "I don't know what I think anymore. Why don't you tell me what it is?" She took a shuddering breath. "Dominic and we've been spending time together. Working out, talking. He makes me feel alive." "And Susie?" Another pause, longer this time. "Susie introduced us. She said you and I had gotten too comfortable, too routine. She thought maybe if I had someone to talk to, someone who understood." "Understood what?" "How lonely I've been." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. I wanted to argue, to point out all the times I'd tried to connect, all the conversations she'd shut down, all the nights she'd chosen work over us. But sitting there in my ridiculous costume, I realized I was too tired to fight. "So you went to hotels?" "We needed somewhere private to talk." "To talk?" "Yes. For 2 hours at a time." She didn't answer. I got out of the car and walked toward the house, leaving her sitting in the driveway. Inside, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my kitchen, still wearing the pirate costume, trying to figure out how my life had turned into such a bad joke. Alicia came in 20 minutes later, having changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt. The transformation from seductive Catwoman to suburban housewife was jarring. "We need to talk," she said. "Now you want to talk. Funny how that works." She sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I know you're angry." "Angry?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm past angry. I'm in some whole new territory that doesn't have a name yet. I never meant for it to happen." "What exactly? The lying? The sneaking around? The hotel rooms? Which part didn't you mean to happen?" "Any of it. All of it." She was crying again. "I love you, Alex. I've always loved you. You have a funny way of showing it." We talked until sunrise. Or rather, she talked, and I listened, trying to piece together the story she was telling me. According to Alicia, Susie had been pushing her to explore her options for months. Dominic was just a friend, someone to vent to about our marriage problems. The hotel meetings were innocent, just talking, just connecting with someone who understood her frustrations. It was all very convenient, all very reasonable, all complete bullshit. By Monday morning, I'd made a decision. I packed a bag and drove to my mother's house across town. Mom was 73, lived alone since Dad died, and had never liked Alicia anyway. She took one look at me standing on her doorstep with a suitcase and a black eye from the fight, and opened the door without asking questions. "She finally showed her true colors," was all she said. I spent the week screening calls and ignoring texts. Alicia left 17 voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. Richard called twice, Nikki called once. Even John, my buddy from the restaurant business, reached out to see if I was okay. The story was spreading. In a town our size, a public fight at a Halloween party was front-page news in the gossip circles. I heard different versions from different people. Some made me the hero, others painted me as the jealous husband who couldn't handle his wife having male friends. By Friday, I was ready to face the world again. I met Richard at Murphy's pub, the same booth where we'd discussed my suspicions a week earlier. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd rather be anywhere else. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel worse. What's the word on the street?" "Mixed reviews. Half the people think you were justified, half think you overreacted." "What do you think?" Richard studied his beer for a long moment. "I think you married the wrong woman, and it took you 8 years to figure it out." That hit harder than I expected. "You knew," I said. "At the pub last week, You and Nikki knew something. We suspected. Nikki noticed things. The way Alicia looked at Dominic, the way she always steered conversations toward him. But suspecting and knowing are different things. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed us? Or would you have convinced yourself we were wrong and stopped talking to us too? He had a point. I probably would have defended Alicia, made excuses, shot the messenger. So what now? Richard asked. Before I could answer, John walked into the pub. He spotted us immediately and headed over, his face grim. We need to talk, he said, sliding into the booth. All of us. John owned 2 restaurants in the district next to mine. We'd been friends for 15 years, ever since we'd both been assistant managers learning the business together. He was the kind of guy who knew everyone's business and usually kept it to himself. I heard about the party, he said. Heard about you and Dominic. Yeah, well, news travels fast. That's not why I'm here. John looked around the pub, then leaned forward. I know Dominic. He eats at my place twice a week, always bragging about something. Last month, he was bragging about your wife. My blood turned to ice. What did he say? Details I won't repeat. But Alex, it wasn't just bragging about an affair. He was talking about taking things from you. Your house, your restaurants, your life. He and Susie have been planning something. Richard set down his beer hard. Planning what? I don't know exactly, but Susie works at that law firm downtown, right? She's been asking questions about divorce proceedings, asset division, business valuations. The room started spinning. It wasn't just an affair, it was a setup. How long have you known? I asked. I heard the first conversation 3 weeks ago. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you ever since. 3 weeks. While I was agonizing over hotel receipts and late nights, they'd been planning to destroy my life. There's more, John continued. Alicia came by my restaurant yesterday. She was with some guy in a suit, asking about your business practices, your finances, whether you had any debts or legal problems. I stood up so fast, I knocked over my chair. Alex, Richard said, where are you going? To end this. Don't do anything stupid. Stupid was trusting people who didn't deserve it. What I'm about to do is the opposite of stupid. I left them in the pub and drove home, my mind racing with possibilities. If Alicia and her conspirators wanted to play games, I was about to show them what happened when you picked a fight with someone who'd spent years managing restaurants in the toughest part of town. They thought they knew me. They thought I was the comfortable, predictable husband who'd roll over and take whatever they dished out. They were about to meet the real me. I spent Saturday morning doing reconnaissance. Not the dramatic movie-style kind, just the boring, methodical work of gathering information. I drove past Dominic's house, noted his work schedule posted on his garage door. The guy was proud of his overtime hours. I checked Susie's salon's website for her appointment calendar. I reviewed my own financial records, looking for anything Alicia might use against me. By noon, I had a plan. The first rule of revenge is that it has to be legal. I couldn't afford to give them ammunition for a divorce proceeding, and I sure as hell wasn't going to jail over people who weren't worth it. But legal doesn't mean nice, and it definitely doesn't mean fair. The second rule is that it has to be public. Private revenge is just personal satisfaction. Public revenge is a message to everyone else who might be thinking about crossing you. I started with Dominic. Monday morning, I drove to the plastics factory where he worked. The place was huge, hundreds of employees, multiple shifts, the kind of industrial operation where everyone knows everyone else's business. Perfect for what I had in mind. I waited in the parking lot until I saw him arrive, then followed him inside. The security guard recognized me from my restaurant. I'd catered a few company events and waved me through without question. Dominic's locker was in the main break room, along with about 50 others. The room was empty during the shift change, giving me exactly the window I needed. I'd come prepared. 3 bags of biodegradable glitter, 2 containers of protein powder, and a box of chocolate X-Lax that I'd crushed into powder form. I mixed it all together in a plastic bag, then carefully opened Dominic's gym bag and dumped the mixture inside, making sure to coat his workout clothes, water bottle, and protein shakes. Then I waited. The beauty of factory work is that everyone takes their break at the same time. At 10:15, the break room filled with workers, including Dominic. He opened his locker, pulled out his gym bag, and immediately got covered in a cloud of glitter and protein powder. "What the hell?" he shouted, as silver sparkles settled on his work clothes and the floor around him. The room erupted in laughter. Someone pulled out a phone and started recording. Within minutes, the video was circulating through the factory's group chat, then spreading to social media. But the real fun started an hour later, when the X-Lax kicked in. I didn't stick around to watch, but John filled me in on the details later. Apparently, Dominic spent most of his shift running to the bathroom, covered in glitter, looking like a disco ball with stomach problems. The nickname Sparkles stuck immediately. Phase 2 targeted Susie. Her salon was called Elegant Cuts, and it catered to the kind of women who had money to spend on their appearance. Susie's client list included half the wives in the upscale neighborhoods, women who valued their reputation above almost everything else. I didn't need to sabotage anything. I just needed to tell the truth. I printed out copies of the hotel receipt I'd found, along with screenshots of text messages between Susie and Alicia that I'd discovered on our shared phone account. Nothing illegal about accessing records for an account I paid for. I included a simple note. Thought you should know what kind of person is handling your hair. I mailed the packages anonymously to 20 of Susie's regular clients. By Wednesday, her appointment book was empty. Phase 3 was more personal. I came home to find Alicia packing suitcases in our bedroom. She looked up when I walked in, her face a mixture of guilt and defiance. "I'm staying at Susie's for a while," she said, "until we figure things out." "Figure what out?" "Our marriage. Whether we can fix this." I sat on the bed and watched her fold clothes into a suitcase. "There's nothing to fix, Alicia. You made your choice." "I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting to pick up milk or missing an anniversary. What you did was make a series of deliberate decisions over several months." She stopped packing and turned to face me. "So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just going to throw it away?" "I'm not the one who threw it away." "Fine," she said, zipping the suitcase with more force than necessary. "But don't think this is over. I have rights, Alex. I'm entitled to half of everything we built together." "Everything we built together?" Interesting phrase. Something in my tone made her pause. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've been doing some research of my own, talking to lawyers, reviewing financial records, making sure I understand exactly what I'm entitled to." The color drained from her face. "See, the thing about planning someone's destruction," I continued, "is that you have to be smarter than they are. You have to make sure they don't find out what you're doing before you're ready to strike." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You, Susie, and Dominic have been planning this for months. The affair was just the beginning. The real goal was to take everything I've worked for and split it 3 ways. She opened her mouth to deny it, but I held up a hand. "John told me about your visit to his restaurant, about the man in the suit asking questions about my business, about Susie's inquiries into divorce law and asset division." Alicia sat down hard on the bed. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to leave. You're going to file for divorce if that's what you want. But you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. The law says a lot of things. It says adultery affects asset division. It says fraud affects asset division. It says conspiracy to defraud a spouse affects asset division." I pulled out a folder and set it on the bed between us. Bank records showing cash withdrawals that match hotel payments. Phone records showing thousands of texts between you and Dominic. Photos from the Halloween party showing you in compromising positions. Witness statements from people who heard Dominic bragging about the affair. Her hands shook as she opened the folder. "And here's the best part," I continued. "I recorded our conversation last week. The one where you admitted to the affair, the hotel meetings, everything. Minnesota is a one-party consent state, which means I can use that recording in court. You bastard. Maybe, but I'm a bastard who's going to keep his house, his business, and his dignity. She grabbed her suitcases and headed for the door. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. After she left, I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my kitchen, looking at the evidence I'd gathered. It felt good to be in control again, to be the one making the moves instead of reacting to everyone else's games. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The real showdown was still coming. 3 days after Alicia moved out, Susie showed up at my door. It was Thursday evening, raining hard enough to make the street look like a river. She stood on my porch in a designer raincoat, her usual perfect hair plastered to her head, looking like a drowned rat with expensive taste. We need to talk, she said. I opened the door wider and gestured her inside. By all means, come in. She stepped into my foyer, dripping water onto the hardwood floor. Up close, she looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, stress lines around her mouth, the kind of exhaustion that comes from watching your carefully laid plans fall apart. You destroyed my business, she said, without preamble. Did I? How exactly did I do that? Those letters you sent to my clients, the lies about me and Alicia. What lies? I sent copies of actual hotel receipts and text messages. Public records, really. If your clients drew conclusions from that information, that's between you and them. She paced across my living room like a caged animal. You don't understand what you've done. I built that salon from nothing. Those clients were my livelihood. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to help destroy my marriage. She spun around to face me. I was helping Alicia find happiness. Your marriage was already dead. I just helped her realize it. By introducing her to your husband? Dominic isn't my husband anymore. That stopped me cold. What? I filed for divorce yesterday. Turns out being married to a man who brags about his affairs to strangers in restaurants isn't as appealing as I thought. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. So now you're here to what? Blame me for your marriage falling apart too? I'm here to make a deal. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. These are photos, from the hotel, from other places. Alicia wasn't as careful as she thought she was. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. What kind of photos? The kind that would make your divorce very expensive for her. The kind that would give you everything you want in court. What do you want in exchange? I want you to call off whatever else you have planned. I know you're not done. This isn't your style to go halfway. I want your word that you'll leave me alone if I give you these. I looked at the envelope in her hands. Part of me wanted to grab it, to have that final piece of evidence that would end this whole mess cleanly. But something about her desperation made me suspicious. Why would you betray Alicia like that? I thought you two were best friends. We were, until she decided to throw me under the bus to save herself. What do you mean? Susie's laugh was bitter. You really don't know, do you? This whole thing, the affair, the divorce plan, all of it, was Alicia's idea. She's been planning to leave you for over a year. Dominic was just the excuse she needed to make it look like your fault. The room started spinning. That's impossible. Is it? Think about it, Alex. When did she start working late? When did she join the gym? When did she start complaining about your marriage to anyone who would listen? The timeline clicked into place in my head. All of it started long before the company picnic where she supposedly met Dominic. She used me, Susie continued. Used my marriage, my husband, my business connections. She needed someone to blame for the affair, someone to make her look like the victim instead of the villain. And you went along with it? I thought I was helping a friend. I thought she was trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who didn't appreciate her. She's very convincing when she wants to be. I sat down on my couch, trying to process this new information. If Susie was telling the truth, then everything I thought I knew about the last 3 months was wrong. "Prove it," I said. She opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of photos. The first few were what I expected, Alicia and Dominic in compromising positions at the hotel. But the last one made my blood freeze. It showed Alicia in a restaurant booth, leaning across the table toward a man in a suit. The same man John had seen her with at his restaurant. They were holding hands, and Alicia was smiling the way she used to smile at me. "Who is he?" "David Chen. He's a lawyer, specializes in high-asset divorces." "When was this taken?" 6 months ago, 3 months before she started the affair with Dominic. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The late nights, the gym membership, the sudden interest in working on herself, all of it was preparation for leaving me. The affair wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a strategy. "She's been playing everyone," I said. "Welcome to the club. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before I could answer, headlights swept across my front windows. A car door slammed, then another. Footsteps on the porch, then aggressive knocking. "Alex!" Dominic's voice, loud and angry. "Open up! We need to settle this!" Susie went pale. "I didn't know he was coming here." "Sure you didn't." More knocking, harder this time. "I know you're in there. Your lights are on." I looked at Susie. "Is this part of the plan? Get me to open the door so he can finish what we started at the party?" "No, I swear I came here alone." "Then how did he know you were here?" Before she could answer, I heard the sound of my back door opening. Dominic had gone around to the rear of the house, where I'd apparently forgotten to lock the door after bringing in groceries earlier. "Stay here," I told Susie, then headed for the kitchen. Dominic was standing in my back hallway, soaking wet from the rain, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that clung to his gym-built frame. He looked like he'd been drinking. "There you are," he said. "We need to talk." "Then you should have used the front door like a civilized person." "Civilized?" He laughed. "You want to talk about civilized? You destroyed my reputation, cost me my job, made me a laughingstock. You did that yourself when you decided to brag about sleeping with my wife. That's not how this works, bro. You don't get to play victim when you're the one who threw the first punch." He stepped closer, and I could smell the alcohol on his breath. This wasn't going to end with talking. "Here's what's going to happen," he continued. "You're going to call off whatever game you're playing. You're going to stop harassing Susie, stop spreading lies about me, and you're going to give Alicia the divorce she wants without making it ugly." "Or what?" "Or I'm going to finish what we started at the party." I looked at him standing in my kitchen, drunk and angry and stupid enough to break into someone's house to make threats. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. "You know what, Dominic? I think that's a great idea." I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, then set it on the counter, angled to capture the whole kitchen. "What are you doing?" "Starting a live stream. Say hello to the Neighborhood Watch app. Everyone in a 5-mile radius is about to see exactly what kind of man breaks into someone's house to threaten them." His eyes went wide as he realized what I'd done. "Turn that off." "No, I don't think I will. In fact, why don't you tell everyone watching why you're here, tell them about the affair, the divorce plan, the whole conspiracy." "You're insane." "Maybe, but I'm not the one who just committed breaking and entering on camera." That's when he lunged at me. I was ready for it. Years of restaurant management had taught me to read people, to see the signs when someone was about to lose control. I stepped aside, and Dominic crashed into my kitchen island, sending pots and pans clattering to the floor. "Careful," I said to the camera. "Looks like our visitor is having trouble with his balance." Dominic got to his feet, his face red with rage and embarrassment. He came at me again, and this time I let him get close enough to grab my shirt before I twisted away, sending him stumbling into my refrigerator. The whole thing was being broadcast live to anyone in the neighborhood who had the Watch app. I could see the viewer count climbing, 20 people, then 50, then over 100. "This is great content," I told the camera, "really showing the community what we're dealing with here." Dominic made one more attempt to tackle me, and I stepped aside again, this time opening my pantry door at the last second. He crashed into the shelves, bringing down boxes of cereal and canned goods. That's when the sirens started. Someone watching the live stream had called the police. "Sounds like your ride is here," I told Dominic, who was sitting on my kitchen floor covered in cornflakes and looking like he wanted to disappear. The police arrived to find me calmly explaining the situation, while Dominic tried to come up with a story that didn't make him sound like a complete criminal. The live stream had recorded everything, including his admission to breaking in through the back door. By the time they led him away in handcuffs, over 300 people had watched the show. Susie was long gone, having slipped out the front door during the chaos. But she'd left the envelope of photos behind, along with a note. She played all of us. Don't let her win. I turned off the live stream and sat in my destroyed kitchen, looking at the evidence scattered across my floor. The trap had worked better than I'd ever imagined. But the best part was still to come. The video went viral overnight. Not internet-famous viral, but small-town viral, which in some ways is worse. By Friday morning, everyone in a 20-mile radius had seen Dominic break into my house, threaten me, and then get humiliated on live stream before being arrested. The local news picked it up. Home invasion foiled by quick-thinking homeowners live stream. They interviewed neighbors, showed clips of Dominic stumbling around my kitchen, and generally turned him into a laughingstock on a scale I couldn't have planned if I'd tried. But the real victory came when Alicia called. "You need to stop this," she said without preamble. "It's gone too far." "I haven't done anything. Dominic made his own choices." "The live stream was a setup. You planned the whole thing." "I planned to defend myself in my own home. If that looked like a setup, maybe it's because I've learned to think ahead." There was a long pause. "We need to meet, to discuss the divorce terms." "I'm listening. Not over the phone. Face to face. Tonight." "Where?" "Our house. 7 o'clock. "It's my house, Alicia. You moved out, remember?" "Fine. Your house. But Alex, come alone." The line went dead. I spent the afternoon preparing. Not for violence, I'd had enough of that, but for the conversation that would finally end this mess. I printed out copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. The photos Susie had left behind, the financial records showing Alicia's planning, the timeline proving this wasn't a spontaneous affair, but a calculated strategy. At 7 o'clock sharp, Alicia knocked on my front door. She looked different, older somehow, worn down by the stress of the last few weeks. She was wearing a simple black dress and no makeup, a far cry from the glamorous Catwoman who'd started this whole mess. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said, settling onto my couch like she still lived here. "Let's get this over with. I want to apologize for everything, the affair, the lying, the way I handled things." "Okay. That's it? Just okay?" "What do you want me to say, Alicia? That I forgive you? That we can work it out? We're past that." She leaned forward. "What if I told you it was all Susie's idea? That she manipulated me into the affair, convinced me you didn't love me anymore?" I pulled out the photos and spread them on the coffee table between us. The restaurant meeting with the lawyer, dated 6 months ago. Her face went white. "What if I told you," I said, "that I know you've been planning this for over a year? That the affair was just cover for the real plan, taking half of everything I've built and starting over with someone new? Where did you get these? Does it matter? The question is whether you want to keep lying or finally tell the truth." She stared at the photos for a long moment, then laughed. It was a bitter sound, nothing like the laugh I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. "You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I planned it. Yes, I was going to take half of everything. Yes, I used Dominic and Susie to make it look like your fault. Why? Because I was bored, Alex. Bored with our marriage, bored with our life, bored with you. You're a good man, but you're safe, predictable. I wanted something more. So you decided to destroy me instead of just leaving. I decided to protect myself. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to start over at 34? I needed financial security while I figured out what came next. The honesty was almost refreshing after months of lies. Well, I said, I hope it was worth it. What do you mean? I pulled out another folder. Dominic's in jail, breaking and entering, criminal trespass, terroristic threats. His wife filed for divorce and took half his assets. His job fired him after the video went viral. Her face was stone. Susie's business is ruined. Her clients all left after they found out about her role in the affair. She's selling the salon and moving back in with her parents. And me? You? You get nothing. I opened the folder and showed her the divorce papers I'd filed that morning. Adultery, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. Minnesota law is very clear about asset division when one spouse engages in this kind of behavior. You'll get your personal belongings and whatever was in your accounts before we got married. Everything else stays with me. You can't do this. It's already done. My lawyer filed the papers this morning. You'll be served officially tomorrow. She stood up, her composure finally cracking. I'll fight this. I'll get my own lawyer. With what money? Your job fired you yesterday after the HR department saw the photos of you with clients' husbands. Turns out, having an affair with a married man while working in human resources is considered a conflict of interest. The color drained from her face. How did you... Anonymous tip to your supervisor. Same photos Susie left behind, along with a detailed timeline of your activities. They did their own investigation and decided you were a liability. She sank back onto the couch, the fight going out of her. 8 years, she whispered. 8 years of marriage, and this is how it ends? No, I said. This is how your plan ends. Our marriage ended the day you decided I was worth more to you destroyed than whole. I walked to the front door and opened it. You should go. You're not welcome here anymore. She gathered her purse and walked to the door, then stopped. I did love you, you know. In the beginning. I know. I loved you too. But love isn't enough when one person decides the other is expendable. She stepped onto the porch, then turned back one last time. What happens now? Now you figure out how to live with the consequences of your choices, just like the rest of us. I closed the door and watched through the window as she got into her car and drove away. The headlights disappeared around the corner, and for the first time in months, my house felt peaceful. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my kitchen, looking at the evidence scattered across the table. Photos, bank records, legal documents, the debris of a marriage that had died long before I realized it was sick. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Saw the news about Alicia's job. You okay? I typed back, better than okay, it's over. Another text, this one from John. Drinks tomorrow night? I'm buying. Sounds perfect. I gathered up all the papers and photos, put them in a box, and carried the whole thing out to my backyard fire pit. The rain had stopped, and the night was clear and cold. Perfect weather for burning bridges. I struck a match and watched 8 years of marriage turn to ash and smoke. The flames climbed high into the darkness, carrying away the last remnants of the life I'd thought I wanted. When the fire died down to embers, I went back inside and looked around my house, really looked at it, maybe for the first time in years. It was a good house, solid, built to last, the kind of place where a man could start over and build something better. Tomorrow, I'd call my lawyer and finalize the divorce. I'd meet John for drinks and start planning the expansion of my restaurant business that I'd been putting off for years. I'd figure out what came next for a 37-year-old man who'd just learned the difference between being married and being happy. But tonight, I was just going to sit in my kitchen, drink my bourbon, and enjoy the silence of a house where nobody was lying to me. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not the suspicious husband, not the betrayed victim, not the vengeful ex. Just Alex Harper, restaurant manager, survivor, and apparently pretty good at playing chess when the stakes were high enough. Alicia had been right about one thing. I was predictable, right up until the moment I wasn't. She'd wanted to meet the real me. Mission accomplished.